So hey everyone, I know I have been MIA for like the past week, so I just want to say sorry about that. At the beginning of this video, it has been a super hectic week for me with school, and then Easton has been super sick. We actually ended up taking him to the emergency room at one point because he was just like coughing and he was having trouble breathing, so we ended up taking him to the emergency room, and that was a story of its own. I do have a couple clips from that though, so I will definitely insert them in some.
Easton. Hi, baby. How are you feeling? Easton. Hi.
But anyways, so today I'm going to start with a sit-down video for you guys. So I'm going to do my labor and delivery story. This is kind of a long story, but I'm going to try to sum it up as much as I can. So, to start off with a little background, I already had my induction date set when I went into labor, and for the past 2 weeks at this point, I had been having false labor. At one point, I actually went down to the OB center, and they sent me home, but my contractions were really consistent. They were literally maybe 2 to 5 minutes apart, but just nothing was happening. And then I was there for an hour, and then they tapered off, so they sent me home. If any of you guys have had false alarms with delivery, you know how much that sucks, but that's what happened. So February 16th, it was 8 o'clock at night when I started having contractions, but once again, I thought nothing of them because I've already had a false alarm, and I didn't want to get my hopes up, and then nothing come of it, and I already had my induction date set, so I was 100% focused, this is when I'm going to have my baby, I'm going to have to be induced. I really didn't want to be, but at this point, Easton was being stubborn, so he just wasn't coming. But anyways, so a quick funny story, I was at my friend Sierra and Vicky's house that night when I started having contractions, and on my way home, my car actually broke down. So I was stranded for 20 minutes, literally 3 minutes from my house, but I live in the middle of nowhere, and I definitely wasn't going to walk home because, for one, it was cold, 2, there's coyotes everywhere where I live, and 3, my dad was already pretty much on his way once I called him to come and get me. So I got home at probably midnight. I watched an episode of SVU because that's just what I do. I have a problem, but I watch it every night. Still, even though I've seen every episode except the new season's coming out, and I'm super excited about that. But I keep getting sidetracked. So, anyways, I finally fell asleep, I'm guessing between 12:45 and 1, and I woke up to go to the bathroom. I went to flip my phone light on, and I seen the time. This is the only reason I know what time my water broke. It was at 2:42 in the morning. I turned my flashlight on. I got up, I stood up out of bed, and water came out just a little bit, but I'm okay, I just peed myself. I peed myself before when I was pregnant. I'm this is just great, now I have to change. And I took another step, and all of a sudden, literally a waterfall. I'm not kidding you, this was movie style, whoosh, and I'm oh my god, what just happened? But it was literally the movies. Water gushed everywhere, my pants were soaked. I instantly was oh my god, my water just broke. But I was kind of shocked at the same time because everyone's your water's not going to break because waters don't break, and it's very rare that your water breaks, but mine did, so that was just exciting for me. So then, obviously, I called my dad, and I called Mason, and I'm okay, we have to go to the hospital, my water broke, we're having a baby. But on the way down there, I had no contractions, I wasn't feeling anything. They got me in there, and they're are you feeling any contractions? I'm no. She checked me, I was barely dilated. I think I was 1 centimeter dilated at this point. There was nothing. And she's okay, well, we're just going to monitor you close because after your water breaks, labor can come very fast. And so we sat there and we monitor me, and 6 o'clock rolls around, and I'm not dilated anymore. I think actually no, I was 1 centimeter dilated. But my contractions were very, very high, on the monitor. So she came in and she's are you feeling any of these? Do you feel okay? I'm I feel great. I don't feel nothing. And then I like jinxed my luck because 2 hours later at 8 o'clock, my contractions, I could feel them. They weren't horrible. They weren't they weren't super painful. I knew they were there, but it wasn't like, oh my god, I'm like going to die type of contractions. I got those later. But, so I was really cool with it, whatever. I got up and walked around a little bit to kind of see if I could get things moving faster. She came in about 9 o'clock, checked me again. I had went up 1 more centimeter at this point. So she put me back on the monitor for a little bit just so she could see how the baby was doing and how my contractions were doing and stuff like that. So then at about 10 o'clock is when my contractions started to get painful to the point where I had to kind of stop and breathe through them. At this point I thought they were painful, but they were nothing compared to the contractions I had later on. So I was just sitting there kind of breathing through my contractions, and they were starting to get more painful. My nurse came back in, she checked me one more time. I hadn't dilated anymore. I was getting a little irritated because I just wanted to get this done with. I was super excited to meet my baby, but I had a long road ahead of me. So about 11 o'clock comes, and my contractions are still there. They're still painful, but I'm not dilating anymore, so my doctor made the call making me take Pitocin or like putting it in an IV drip so that we could get things moving. At about noon, my contractions were like full force, painful Pitocin contractions. I was like stopping every maybe like 4 minutes, breathing through them, like how the movies are where you're like grabbing onto things and breathing through. I had to do that. Mason was actually sleeping at this point, but that's besides the fact. So my hospital was really awesome, and they had like jacuzzi tubs and really nice showers for us to be in when we were in labor. So I actually ran a bath, and I got in there, and it was so nice, and it helped a little bit. And then after about half an hour, my body kind of got used to the water. It got a little cold, and I started feeling them again. So I got up and went back into bed so they could monitor me some more. 1 o'clock, well, probably it's more like 2 now, rolls around, and my contractions are still in full force. I had been in labor for 10 hours at this point, 12 hours at this point, and I was starting to get tired, but I couldn't obviously sleep through my contractions, so my doctor actually ended up giving me morphine, and this was definitely her call. She said that she thinks that I'm going to need to be rested for obviously pushing and stuff. But at this point, I was just so tired and drained, I couldn't sleep through anything. So she gave me some morphine, so I got like 30 minutes in, and then my contractions came back, and I could feel them again. I went and I took a shower, because they had these really nice showers where like water squirted out this way and this way, so it was like double hitting you, and it felt super good. And then, my contractions, once again, were whooping my butt. I finally reached like 5 centimeters dilated at this point, and it is like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I finally got 5 centimeters dilated, and my doctor came in, and she asked me if I wanted an epidural, and I said yes. It was kind of I think I was being a little dramatic at this point, but my contractions were really coming strong. They were really hurting. They were there at least every 4 minutes still. And I was just tired and I wanted to rest. So, I got my epidural, which, by the way, did not hurt at all. I did not feel my epidural. I've heard horror stories, so I was super scared. Mason was more scared than I was because he'd seen how big the needle was that was going into my back. But at this point, I had been having contractions for so long, I was just done with it, and I was ready to get some sleep. So, by 5 o'clock, my epidural and everything is done with, and I am in bed, sleeping soundly. I feel better. I can finally get some sleep. Everyone, of course, is blowing up my phone, which is making me irritated. So at this point, I was kind of on edge, and I was super happy that I could sleep, because I was just so irritated. And I don't really know why. I think it was because I was in pain, and everyone, like, wouldn't leave me alone. So I actually ended up shutting off my phone, so no one would bother me besides Mason. And then, so he took a nap when I took a nap. At this point, obviously, during labor, you're not allowed to eat. So I was starving at this point, super hungry. I couldn't eat anything. I'm like, okay, baby, you gotta come out now. She comes and check me. I'm like 6 centimeters dilated at this point. And this is like at 8 o'clock. And I was just so upset. I ended up like crying a lot because I'm like, I'm in pain. Because my epidural started wearing off. And I have this button that I could push. I think most hospitals have that. A button you could push to get more, but you can only have so much of that before a certain time. So I already pushed my limit. So my anesthesiologist came in again. He gave me one more push. That helped me sleep till probably 11 o'clock. They came in, checked me. I was maybe 7 centimeters dilated at this point. And my nurse just felt so bad for me. This was my nurse from before, like when my water broke the following morning, and she came back for her shift again at night. And I had a headache at this point. I was just so over this. And my contractions were still there. Obviously, I had my epidural, so I really couldn't feel them that much. But I was super uncomfortable. I couldn't get up out of bed. I couldn't take a shower. I couldn't get in the bath or anything, so I just kind of had to deal with it. I had the TV on. I was watching some game show. I don't even remember what it was, but it was the worst show I've ever seen, so I definitely would not recommend that. That's probably why I don't remember the name. So I was just so done. Midnight rolls around. She comes in. She checks me. I haven't dilated anymore. She calls my doctor, and my doctor came in, and she's like, I really don't want to give you C-section. I think your body's going to make it. You only have 3 more centimeters, and usually this part goes fast, so we're going to keep an eye on you, and we're going to keep going, type of thing, with this. And at this point, I'm like, okay, I'm going to put my faith in my doctor. I'm going to listen to her. I'm going to see what she has to say. And she's done this how many times? She knows what she's talking about. So let's skip ahead to 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm 8 centimeters dilated. I am in pain. My epidural at this point is almost completely worn off. I'm just done. I can't. I'm irritated. I'm crying, bawling in pain. And my nurse, she was so amazing. And there was actually a trainee with her who was amazing too. She was so good. And she's like, you got this, sweetie. You got this. You're going to do good. You're going to make it. You know, we're almost there. We're almost there. So 4 o'clock rolls around. I am 8 centimeters dilated, and I am so close that I am just, you know, I'm so excited. We're 8 centimeters dilated, 2 more centimeters, and we are going to push, and I was just ecstatic. And that's when things went downhill. So I was obviously on the monitor, and my nurse kept coming in like every 5-10 minutes, and that's kind of when I knew something was up. And she kept turning me. She'd have me lay on my left side, then she'd move me to my right, and then she'd have me sit up, and then she'd let me lay down, and then she'd sit me back up. And this was like every time she came in here. And actually what was happening is Easton was in distress. So this was a red flag, obviously. That's why she kept moving me and trying to get me comfortable and trying to get him comfortable. And this goes on till 5 o'clock. Actually, no, I think it's more like 4:50. My nurse calls my doctor and says that Easton's in distress and that she thinks that she should come to the hospital. I'm still only 8 centimeters dilated, and she just thinks it would be the best. And this nurse, let me tell you, I think she was like the most amazing woman in the world. Like, she was calling me shots before the doctor even would. But, so we get there. She gets here, she comes to my room, she sees me, she says, oh, I'm okay, you know, just can keep a close eye on me. About 5:05, my nurse comes in, and she looks at me, and she looks at my sheets, and it's kind of dark in the room, but then she looks back at my sheets, like, below my waist, and she instantly, like, loses it, and she doesn't lose it, but she instantly is like, okay, I need the doctor in here, so the trainee went out and grabbed the doctor, and my sheets were soaked in blood from my waist down, and not, like, just like a little itty bitty spot, like it was soaked. My legs were soaked, there was blood everywhere. And at this point, by the time my doctor comes in, she says, okay, we're doing an emergency C-section right now, and we gotta get this baby out. and it actually turned out that my placenta detached before my body dilated all the way. So we were here. I was having an emergency C-section. I was freaking out. Mason was sleeping on the couch, and, you know, he wakes up and hears, oh, she's having an emergency C-section. He's freaking out. I'm freaking out. And everyone around me was just so good to me, and they were so calm, and they helped me a lot, and they rushed me right down to the operating room, which was literally like 2 doors down from my hospital room. They leaned me up to give me, I don't know what it's called, but it, you know, numbs you for C-sections. And this is when it really, really goes downhill. He comes in, his name was, he gives me my anesthetic, or whatever it's called, and instantly I can't breathe. So what happened was, he gave me too much, and he numbed me, just not from like here down, but all the way up to my throat. And he had numbed me completely, and I instantly was like, I can't breathe, but I couldn't tell them I can't breathe. So I remember my doctor looking at fear, like, she didn't look in fear, but she looked very worried at my anesthesiologist. So he laid me down, and he instantly put an oxygen mask on me, and I couldn't breathe, I couldn't talk. I was just so anxious and worried about everything that was going on, and I kind of blanked out for a little bit, because I would have to focus and tell my body to breathe. I literally had to sit there and be like, okay, Saren, breathe in, breathe out. And all while this was happening, my doctor was actually really cool, and he was like massaging my head. Well, not my doctor, but the anesthesiologist was like massaging my head, and it actually felt pretty good thinking back, but I was more worried obviously about my son at this point and what was going on. And at this point, the last thing I remember before like going out is that we need to get her out. We need to get this baby out now. And that, I think, put fear in me, and I blanked out while he was coming out. And then I remember opening my eyes again and hearing him cry for the first time, which was the most emotional moment of my life. Actually, second most emotional. That was an incredible moment, and knowing that he was okay, and that I was okay, and I started being able to breathe again because it was wearing off. And my nurse brings him in, like, holds him next to me, and I look at him, and the first thing I say is that that's not my baby, because he is way too cute to be my baby. And I was just bawling. It was the most beautiful moment of my life, and if any of you guys are moms, you know that moment is the most beautiful moment ever. And just looking at him and seeing how beautiful he was, I was just, I have no words for it. It was just the most amazing moment of my life. And at that moment, I knew that Alright guys, so as I was editing my video, I noticed that I forgot a very, very important part. Easton is just having a fit in there. But anyways, so after I was in recovery, my doctor came in and talked to me, and she said that Easton was stuck in my pelvic bone, so there was no way that he would have been able to been born vaginally, if that's how I'm going to put it. And it's because my cervix is to the left, on my uterus, and it's tilted. So she said that I'm probably never going to be able to have babies vaginally. And then on top of it, when Easton was born, he was really bruised on his shoulder and his side of his face, like his ear and his eyebrow, because of being stuck and being pushed against my pelvic bone. So I just wanted to tell you guys that, because it was really important part of the story, and I gotta get back to Easton. But make sure to like and subscribe to my channel so you can see more of me and Easton. And if you guys have any of your labor and delivery stories on YouTube, link them down below so I can watch them.